Hi everyone, this is Striker, and welcome to episode number 4 of my Redout Advanced Strategy Guide series. In this video, I will be taking a look at my former world record lap on the loop track of the Vertex location and show you how sometimes even the simpler tracks in Redout can provide deceptive challenges. This one has left me feeling a little bit loopy, so let's take a look. So now that we've watched the lap back in its entirety, the first track obstacle we have here to navigate is a deceptive S-turn. So see how it slopes to the left and then gets back to the right. The positioning here is very important in terms of moving yourself in that forward direction, because we want to basically be straightened out just before we get to these red and white lines. Once we get to the lines now, as we talked about last week in my Ghibli lap, I want to set myself up for a right counter straight to gain speed during the straightaway. So look at the position of my ship now, see how it's pointed at the left barrier, and that is going to allow me to build a sense of speed down this straightaway more than I would be able to had I not counter straight. So right now I'm at 10:31, and this is just prior to me hitting the boost to start the lap. In my testing, I have noticed that if you do not counter straight this straight, most likely you will be around 980, 990, 1000 kilometers per hour. So we're losing about 30 kilometers per hour right there, moving into one of the longer semi-straightaways of this track. If you can keep the counter straight and build up the speed, notice right here how I'm able to throw myself into that boost, into this initial loop, and carry a lot of forward momentum. Now as we do this, notice how this loop is not a direct straightaway, it does slope to the left. So as I approach this boost pad, I also want to be thinking stay close to the left side barrier, which will allow me to not have to steer to accommodate my position on the loop. So even though it looked like I was oscillating a little bit side to side, most of that is just alternating my strafing to keep my forward momentum. So after we clear this loop, what I recommend you do is position yourself near the left side of this jump off before this landing. And that is because this little gap is deceptive in the way I would have thought to approach it. What I would think to do, and what I've tested, is if we can stay near the red and white center lines, jump off the middle of the track, I would think, well, we can then cut this entire right-hand turn and we can just fly through the air, if you see my cursor, and land right here before the next boost pad. But since it slopes so sharply to the right, what ends up happening is you either have to swerve to keep your angle or hit the left side wall, neither of which are ideal. So instead what I do here is I land very early. I actually use the width of this track to my advantage. So from here, I can draw a straight line into the boost, into the next segment. So right here, notice how my ship is once again very, very straight. In terms of ship and power-up selection, this is the Koningsworth with an OET turbo setup. This is one of the more recent metas that has been discovered in the game, and the reason for this meta is that the Koningsworth in of itself is a fast ship, So even though we're losing a little bit of speed by picking OET, it allows us to get a very fast energy recharge. And in a track like this, which prioritizes straightaways and boost, we're able to provide more turbo boosts at more spots. So right after we land on that turbo pad, we can immediately hit a boost into the longest straightaway of the game into our next point of interest. So I'll bring that back a little bit. We jump, we land early, we boost, and then we're flying through the straight right to our point of interest here. So now this track is going to throw at us two very gradually sloping right-handers. What I recommend you do, just like we talked about in Roaring Waters, is you want to cut the angles off of these turns to be able to basically take them in straight lines. So watch my ship angle as I go from here to my cursor. Very straight. Now, here's the second right-hander approaching. Notice I clipped the left edge of the boost pad. Watch the angle. Very straight. So I just took 2 turns and managed to almost not turn, which has kept my speed above 1200 kilometers per hour. You'll notice I referenced the speedometer a lot because I believe that's one of the most objective metrics of performance in your time trials. I will explain how I do that in great detail in a future video, but for right now, just observe that we're maintaining speed through these angles. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky. You would think you could do the same kind of angle cut on this turn, especially with the amount of slope that we have. But if you cut this turn the way we just cut the last 2, what ends up happening is your ship flails out to the right of this track, if you can see my cursor. So what we instead do here is preemptively turn and straight left. So look at that angle I'm creating now. Now I'm actually looking at the gap. I'm not even still on the track in terms of my ship position. What that allows me to do is cut this and boost through it and utilize the slope of the track to my advantage. And to play this next part here in real time, I want you to watch this jump and the landing. So in most of the jump cuts in Redout, you'll usually want to maximize airtime. But what I have found is, based on the fact that this track slopes upwards and meets you with an incoming turn, that it doesn't serve your best interest to fly through the air and land long. Whether it be here, or even some of the trickier players might try to land more up here, cutting the entire turn. But between that slope of the track here and this turn here, that doesn't work too well. If you are creative though, just know that the kill plane is not until you get to about here. So you can play with that, and there might be a better way than what I'm showing. But what I found is if you can take this turn, pitch slightly down, see that? Fast. You pitch fast to the downward angle. You hold 1500 in the air, and then you're able to gradually slope that turn. Now I want you to watch the speedometer here. I have run great laps on loop, looked at the speedometer in analysis, and have found that I'm about 1030, 1040, 1050, 1060. That will not cut it if you want to be in the top 5 in time trials on this track. So what you need to do here is try to bump where after your bump, you apply a little bit of boost, but we stay at 1100 plus. So right now, this is a great lap. I'm at 1130. Notice my boost gauge is basically drained, whereas back here, I still had a little bit more, you see right there. And then I provide a slight drain there. That's what OET gives us the ability to do. And I'm able to move into the trickiest segment of the track. So this segment right here is a double left-hander leading into the S turn that we discussed at the beginning of the lap. The hardest thing here is to set yourself up around these first two left-handers. So this one here, and position yourself to drive fast through the finish line. So I want you to watch this uninterrupted, and then we'll kind of go over what you're seeing. Right there. So between this lap and the world record, there is only a 4 millisecond difference, which according to the timer would be 0.004 or 4,000th of a second. Given the way the timer works in Redout, it is hard for me to say definitively whether that lap was ahead of mine or whether the two laps may have been equal. And unfortunately, the player who broke the record doesn't have a video of his own lap to compare. But regardless, we can basically assume that we have two laps that are essentially world record times. And the approaches through this segment are vastly different. What I believe in doing is applying a wall bounce to the right and sharply cutting your angle off of that wall bounce as we move into the S turn. What he does is takes it gradually, so he is going to be less likely to slide this way. He's going to be here, if you see my cursor, kind of providing a left turn already, sloping the angle and turning more gradually. Why I believe in the wall bounce is I found it to be a little bit more consistent, but it's still a very difficult segment because when you cross through this turn here, the momentum of the ship will inherently carry you way to the right. In all of my laps on this track, I have not been able to stay very close to the left while maintaining speed. If you can do that somehow, look how, at my cursor, how we would have been able to really cut down this right-hander into a straighter line for the boost. But given this situation, that might just be the way you have to do this track, so we have to make compromises. And the compromise is try to stay really close to the right here, turn into the wall, boost, and hope that my boost carries me where I don't contact. So I got really close there, but I did not hit. And luckily, based on that angle, I'm able to hold a lot of forward speed as we move here into the finish. Now you'll see right here, I do contact the wall, gave me a slight loss of speed, but because I was able to hold a consistent angle, so watch the way I'm boosting, I'm holding a pretty straight angle there, not a lot of turning. That wall bounce did not cost me significantly because once again I'm accelerating past or near the 1200 kilometer per hour mark. So if I watch this lap back in its entirety, some of the areas that I feel could be improved. Number one, right here, if we can take this S turn really, really well, we could probably get even faster moving to this spot right here. Applying a little bit less steering and strafing correction through this loop. Now we talked about counter strafing. Can't really counter strafe on this straightaway because of the oscillation in the track. So just trying to stay really close to those barriers until that third turn right there. And then this is the make or break spot. Getting a really clean exit out of this S turn where I hopefully would not have to contact that left side wall in order to drive my best lap. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening today. I hope this video is helpful to you moving forwards and look forward to bringing you more Redout Advanced Strategies in the future. Thank you.